eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
Well, 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 look what the cat dragged in. Me. Sorry, I don't know what that was about. How are we all? What the hell is going on? It's nice to see you all. I mean, it's only been a couple of days, but it feels like it's been a while. And doesn't that part of the screen just feel a little bit empty? Right? A little bit weird, isn't it? This whole house feels kind of empty right now. But it's a sign of the times. It's a sign of the times. You missed me? Thank you very much, Peter. I missed you too. I missed all of you guys. This is so routine for me now that when I don't do this, it literally feels like something is missing. Like my day, it's, you know, like your day is, I can't get closure on my day. It's weird. Yeah, it is. Yep, Suki, it is empty. Yep. But we've been getting updates. We've been getting videos. If you're in the members section of our Discord, because it is one of our members who is looking after her for us, and she is just loving life. We've got some cute videos of him playing fetch and tug of war, and she is just bouncing around on her new farm, you could call it. She's loving it. I'm happy for her. So today we're getting into Tartaria. Now, this is something that admittedly I don't know much about, okay? And I'm excited because this is something that I've seen little bits of, and I understand like the general premise of what it's about, but I've never really looked into it before. But I've looked into it like a little bit, like just briefly, and trying to understand what it is. And it's fascinating, and it really does kind of line up with, you know, a lot of the things that we talk about, like an ancient civilization and, you know, lost technology, and why can't we seem to replicate the things that we did in the past, yet our technology is so superior these days. You know, it all kind of lines up. So I'm excited to dig into this video today. We're going to be looking at a video from my lunch break. And are there any Tartarian experts in the chat? Because I feel like this is a pretty common conspiracy theory that a lot of people are kind of across, and I know that I might even be the odd one out here. But I hope you guys are all excited to get into this one. For anyone who is watching this after the fact and not live, I will make sure I leave a little chapter marker to let you know when the video actually starts. But we are just going to chill here just for a little bit, because I feel like, yeah, we do need to kind of catch up a little bit and let people file in. And also, depending on how long this goes, I think we'll do a members only stream straight after this. Probably just hang out in the members section, maybe play some GeoGuessr. Maybe definitely play some GeoGuessr, because I really like GeoGuessr and it's a lot of fun. So I think we'll be doing that. Tartare sauce. Ooh, that's I don't know about that one. Tartare sauce is like one of those ones where I'll go through stages of being like, yep, I'm all about tartare sauce. And then I'll be like, dude, that sauce is rank. Why would you ever eat that? It's a weird one. There are a few things in life like that, actually. The World's Fair stuff was mainly plaster facades, not stone. Okay. Well, I mean, it looks a lot like a lot of the buildings that you do see, though. So even if they were plaster facades, someone made these old buildings that still stand today. Josh, have you heard of Project Bluebeam? I absolutely have. I absolutely have. Do I think it's coming true? I mean, honestly, like, kind of, yeah. Like, this is the thing, right? This is kind of why I can't really get on board with the age of disclosure stuff. And, you know, like, yes, it's good. It's bringing awareness to the topic. You know, like, people were a little bit unhappy with my take on it because I was a little bit pessimistic. And that might be slightly because they knocked my stream off the air when I didn't actually do anything wrong. Yeah, we might have been a little bit bitter about that. Maybe, perhaps. I don't know. Probably. But also, it's like, yes, it is bringing attention to the topic, but is it bringing attention to it in the right way? And that is because in this Age of Disclosure documentary, you know, they talk about that, you know, this is like an arms race. We need to we need to invest in this. This is a threat. This is a war. It feels too much like the things that we've heard that they're going to use extraterrestrials as a threat narrative to continue the war machine. And you know what, we talk about it a lot on the channel, but we go back to what Carol Rosen said in the Stephen Greer press conference in 2001. And you know, remember, I think the key thing that people forget about Carol Rosen's speech there in 2001 is that she said, you know, first, she said it's going to be the Soviets, then it's going to be rogue nations, and then terrorism, or maybe the other way around. But she says terrorism, okay? Or she says something like that. But this is before 9/11 happened. So she's saying this before 9/11 happened, and she's saying they're going to use terrorism and rogue nations as an excuse to perpetuate the war machine. This is before 9/11. Then 9/11 happened. Netanyahu begged America to go and invade Iraq and Afghanistan, and that happened. They for weapons of mass destruction that they didn't have, at least in the sense that we think of them. You know, we think of like nukes and things like that. But, you know, I'm open to the idea that maybe there's some crazy shit buried underneath the Middle East somewhere. It certainly seems to be a pretty important part of the world. And, you know, there's a story about the Tomb of Gilgamesh. You got the Dead Sea Scrolls. You know, it's a very interesting part of the world in relation to our history and where we came from and potentially technologies that have been lost. So I'm open to the idea that it could have been something else there. But that did happen, right? We have been in basically an endless war since then. And now, here we are being told that aliens are the next threat and we need to, you know, we need to invest in this. It is exactly what they said is going to happen, and the war machine keeps turning. So, you know, I do think that's something that we really need to consider. And I really struggle to get past that with this age of disclosure stuff. The threat narrative, it just doesn't really sit right with me. And I know that that's, you know, it's probably never going to change. It's just the way the government has been doing their things, you know, since the beginning. But I would encourage people, and, you know, I tell this to myself as well. If something happens, right? If an alien invasion happens, and and people are going, it's staged, it's fake, it's Project Bluebeam, and other people are going, no, it's real. We need to invest. We need to go to war with them. I would say let's try and remain calm until you actually feel like your life is directly, immediately in threat, i.e., you're face to face with like something non-human or something like that that makes you feel like your life's in danger. Other than that, I think we should all just stay calm. That's what I think. I think you're taking it too literally. It's just to get the unaware listening. This has to be done slowly and gradually to stop crazy. Yeah, no, I don't think you. I think you're misunderstanding me, Mick. It's what I'm saying. I know that's what their angle is, and you know, for the ones that are willing to fork out $40 on top of their Amazon subscription, that is probably happening. But what I'm saying is that movie comes with a narrative. That movie comes with a context. It's not just like, hey guys, just want to let you all know non-human intelligence exists, and so do, you know, exotic technologies. It's that plus we're in an arms race. We need to invest. This is a threat. Do you know what I mean? Like, it comes with a very specific narrative. So it's like, yes, it is getting more eyes on the topic, but it's also getting more eyes to potentially get hooked into a certain narrative or version of the story, which, you know, I think we all kind of have a pretty good idea, a pretty reasonable reason to feel like that could be an ulterior motive there. Scare tactics, yeah. It's the same tactic they've used for a long time, really. Order out of chaos, as the Masons say. Stevie. Oh, and Nadine Norton, you little freak. You became a member before we were even live. Thank you very much. And Stevie, my man, hope the move is going well. He says, Qatar blocks your live stream, so I had to use a VPN at 30,000 feet over the Indian Ocean right now. Safe travels to you soon, bro. Thanks for members stream. So bored. 9 hours left in the flight. Oh, my brother, we got you covered. Hope you have a safe flight, my man. And interesting to know that we're blocked in Qatar. We'll have to head over there and have a word to them. And Jalam says, I'm watching you from Brazil. Say hi to us. News from Varginha coming soon. Shout out to Brazil. I can't wait to visit. Absolutely. Let's go kick a soccer ball or a football, as you would say, on Copacabana Beach. I couldn't think of anything better. And I'm looking forward to the next part of Moment of Contact. Absolutely. All right. I think we should get into the show now. So like I said, this is Tartaria. I'm a newbie. This is something that I don't really know much about, but I'm excited to dig into it and give you guys my sort of raw reaction and thoughts on that. And then, as I said, after this stream, we're probably going to head over to members only, where we'll chill out a bit more. We'll keep just chatting and probably play some GeoGuessr, which I'm looking forward to. So with all that said, make sure you guys can hear it. And I'm going to put that there. All right, here we go. By the way, this is my lunch break. Yes. Yes. I forgot to put the fan on, so of course the camera overheated. This is my lunch break called the 1904 World's Fair Lie, and it is linked below if you want to go and support this channel and subscribe because they do lots of cool videos. I'm going to press play and fix my camera.
I promise that I have something that will take the mainstream history that we have been force-fed since day one and rip it right in half. So here we go. The photo description states that in the summer of 1903, construction continues inside the entrance to the Palace of Machinery for the Louisiana Purchase Exposition, the 1904 World's Fair. The date of this photo is in 1903. The fair in St. Louis was in 1904. So this would all make perfect sense, except there's a massive flaw. A flaw so big that it's undeniable proof that this building was constructed 100 years before the 1903 date that we are told, and proof that there was a mud flood that ripped through this building at some point after 1803. Where is the foundation of this building? Incredibly detailed construction projects do not take place on top of dirt and garbage. This, in my opinion, is the most incredible photo that I have ever seen to this point. A lie right in our faces, saying that this was being built in 1903, when we have multiple dates of 1803, time-stamped right on the building. Multiple times. Not only that, but you can see that the mud flood damaged the bottom of this building here. The mud came after the construction, not before. And I want to make that.
So is this whole mud flood thing part of like the Tartarian lore? Like, my idea was that it's just like, you know, old architecture that just doesn't seem to be able to be replicated these days. And then when you consider the technology that they had back then, it's like, how the hell did you build something like this? Why is the mud flood, like, why is the mud flood part of it? Can anyone explain to me in the chat?
That point very clear. This is a cleanup project, 100%. After this World's Fair, they knocked these buildings down, not because they were pathetic, but because they held dates that do not fit in our mainstream timeline and architecture that we cannot reproduce today. It's incredible. I've been talking to many people, engineers, construction workers, architects, and more about this photo. They are telling me that this is undeniable proof, and at this point, there isn't an excuse in the book that could save the mainstream history. It's time for everyone to wake up to the nonsense that we have all been force-fed to believe. There are a lot of hidden photos that I'm about to share, and they no longer have to be buried deep in the archives. And for the beginning of these photos, I want to focus on the main theme. The theme being that the building is completed, and they are simply putting scaffolding around the buildings. In my opinion, they are painting these buildings white so that they look brand new, when in reality, they are old and from the past civilization. Here we are told is the government building in the Philippine Exposition. We can zoom in on these guys, and of course they're not doing anything productive. You would think that they could build a better ladder compared to what they supposedly built right next to them. And again, let's switch over to this one, where we are told that this is a construction photo, when it's clearly completed. The only construction going on here is the scaffolding. Again and again. People just standing there looking so odd. And it almost looks like they just have a kid here. I mean, look at the detail on top of the columns. It's unbelievable. And I believe that I was correct when I said that they were just painting these buildings. They are not constructing anything. Now let's look down here at the bottom right-hand side of this photo. It says right here that these are painters and decorators. They are not building anything like the description says for these photos. And they needed a place to live on.
So the description literally says the construction of this thing, but when you zoom in, it says painters. That can't be real. Well, so that's on this website. I mean, that's a fuck up. But like it's I mean, it does make sense. Like, look at the scaffolding, right? The scaffolding in these pictures is like crude, to put it lightly. It's very crude. I mean, you have to paint it after you build it, right? Yeah, that is true. But also, like, I don't know, the scaffolding just looks, I don't know. I mean, I'm no scaffolder, but when you look at that building and the crude scaffolding next to it, there does seem like some kind of odd juxtaposition there. Josh, you should do a poll on who gives this story credit before and after the stream. Okay. All right, Doc, we'll press play and we'll throw up a poll and we'll let it run quickly to see how people are feeling about this theory right now.
On site, because they were painting all of these old world buildings. They were going to be there for a while. The buildings lasted forever. The paint did not. So they needed to get a fresh coat of paint on there. But when you look at the description of the photo, it says that it's a photo during its construction. So they are clearly lying. Painting is not constructing. It's painting. Two different, completely separate jobs. So these are all from the St. Louis World's Fair that we showed in the intro. The dates are from 1803, not 1903. And it had a mud flood that ripped through the interior of these buildings. So let's take a look at this building from St. Louis. And this is founded and renamed the Varied Industries Building. This is another completion photo that they're trying to say is a construction photo. And I want to zoom in on the top of this.
The scaffolding looks like a level 1 sailing raft. Dude, it looks like it's made from the exact same material as a level 1 sailing raft. My man.
This building. Can you believe the tech that is on the top of this thing? It's incredible.
That's an energy conductor.
We have shown the airships in episode 48 and how they connected these flying crafts to the top of these buildings and used them as charging docks. And to be clear, I don't think that the past civilization was limited to just these airships that we have photos of. I think that they had much more powerful vehicles. But let's get back to these photos. Skeptics have said these buildings were just made of wood and very easily constructed, and then that's why they knocked them down. No, the only wood that was being used in this project is for the scaffolding to paint the old world buildings white. The lumber is for the scaffolding, not the actual building. Let's make that very clear. If you've ever gone to one of these buildings, the pillars are pure marble. They're not wood. You can use the...
I mean, I've never been to these specific buildings, but I have seen some amazing architecture in my travels, specifically in Europe. And it is like kind of astounding to stand there and just like look at... Just stand in its vicinity. It feels like just something else. It's so different to what we're used to. An interesting one is the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. And that thing has been like under construction for like a century or more. It's like the longest construction in history or something like that. It's crazy. And it's a crazy looking building too. You can almost see the like eras of construction in it. It's taken that long. It's got like different eras of construction within the building itself. We wrapped up that poll, by the way, and currently 63% of you guys think that Tartaria is real. 37% of you think it's fake and gay. Now, we probably should have added a third option there for real and gay as well, but we missed out. We'll add that at the end poll to see if anyone's minds have changed. Yvonne says really crude and sus pics. The scaffolding is def sus. I agree with you on that one. And Achy Balls, my brother, with 10 gifted memberships. Thank you very much, bro. You're a legend. Let's get some love in the chat for these 10 new weirdos who can now also attend the members-only stream after this one.
Field Museum is an example, located in Chicago. And now here we have another incredible construction photo, where for some reason, there isn't much construction going on, just a building with more scaffolding. So my question is, how have they gotten away with this nonsense for so long? That is not construction. I can clearly see that the building is done. Just because someone put a ladder in front of it doesn't mean this is being constructed. This is the process that painters use. Any painter will confirm this. And also imagine carrying these materials up that scaffolding. If this was really a construction photo, it would be impossible and very embarrassing because nobody would be able to do it. Does anyone see a crane? Anywhere? No. Once you know, you know. You don't go back to believing in the lies, because they are ridiculous. We have more tech in the background here. There are 2 of them, actually. And here we have a bunch of people that found this building. Let's take a second and look at the size of this thing. This was the Palace of Electricity. Could you imagine?
It's kind of wild to imagine, like, the people back then who dressed like this building this. It's like hard to imagine that.
This being constructed today. This thing is unbelievable. And remember, there were so many of these buildings being thrown together in like 2 years supposedly, at the same exact time. Oh, and they are all dated 1803, not 1903. And what happened to the Palace of Electricity? We were told that these buildings were practically worthless, and they ended up in dump sites because they were just made of wood, right? The problem with that is that they are contradicting themselves. The Missouri History Museum states that the construction for the Palace of Electricity and Machinery costed them $412,000, which is the equivalent to $11.48 million today in 2023. So it's practically worthless, or is it 11.4 million? This is the kind of stuff that makes me fully trust the mainstream narrative. I love just knowing deep down that they would never lie to us. It's just really nice to know. I love that they provide us with full logistical details. They never contradict themselves. They go that extra mile to make sure that what we are being told is exactly what happened. Oh, they don't do any of that? No, they don't do any of that. Literally none of it. The title states that this is the Iowa State Pavilion construction. And if you just shut your eyes right now, you can clearly see them right there laying the cornerstone. Okay, you can open your eyes now. This is the master builder down here. And those guys up there were also fully trained on how to build massive palaces. In fact, they are admittedly self-trained, getting a lot of their architecture designs and ideas from working on Abe Lincoln's house. As you can see, they were very busy workers.
Now, there's no way people who built that are from the same era as the people who built this. That something ain't right there.
This is the master builder down here. And those guys up there were also fully trained on how to build massive palaces. In fact, they are admittedly self-trained, getting a lot of their architecture designs and ideas from working on Abe Lincoln's house. As you can see, they were very busy workers.
So
they
this
got
is
that
Abe
building
Lincoln's
done in
house.
less than 2 years, ready for the world to see. Temporarily, of course, before knocking it down, so that nobody would ever see it again.
Why did Abe Lincoln live in a literal shithole? Like, why? Surely that's not his house.
And we can't forget to mention that they have painters actually painting this building. 4 of them to be exact. Proving again that these are not construction photos. They are painting photos. And over on the right-hand side of this photo, we can clearly see a construction process happening, putting the scaffolding together with perfection. Just look at that scaffolding architecture. Okay, I'll be done with the sarcasm for today. The mainstream narrative is so ridiculous. It's really hard to not make fun of it at this point. And then we have more painters. He's got his paintbrush in his hand, and the paint right there on the scaffolding.
Right, that's where he was born? Okay, fine. That's fair. I thought they meant like Abe Lincoln, the president, went home after being the president to that. Forgive me. If that's where he was born, fair play. Okay, I'll allow that. I will allow that. I thought that's where the literal president lived. And meanwhile, apparently these buildings are somewhere and no one lives in them.
Scaffolding. So it's pretty clear at this point that these are no longer allowed to be considered construction photos for anyone that ever had a doubt in their mind. Now he's holding up a hat, and that hat says something on it. I wish I knew what it said. Comment below what you think that hat says. All answers are accepted. The guy next to him is also wearing a top hat, which is, of course, if you're going for the productive painter / I still want my style points look, very common for the 1900s. Very impressive. And here we have the United States Fisheries Building during its completion. But I'm going to zoom in on this building on the right-hand side because it's very strange. And we have these creatures' faces on the side of this building with writing here as well. I can't see exactly what it says, but it definitely doesn't say Fisheries Building. And then we can see more painters up here on the left-hand side. And here we have a modern fisheries building. Built by us, of course, which won't last forever, unfortunately, because that's the way we construct things. So here we have a fisheries building that is designed by the Greek gods. And we are told that this is a separation of 100 years. But we are evolving and advancing when in all honesty, that's the complete opposite. More and more people are realizing that the mainstream history that is written down by some random individual that was never even there and is being told what to write is a joke. Anyone that is seriously backing the regurgitated nonsense at this point and is serious about it should be very careful what they hope and believe in, because I have a lot more on the way that is going to rip their history books apart. So let's...
This guy's confident. He's coming with receipts. And he sounds a little bit jaded, if I'm honest, but I like it. I like it. He's passionate and he's fired up. Drucifer says 1803 is the date of the Louisiana Purchase, which he said that was the exhibit. Okay, thank you. Fair enough. Arvillo, welcome, you little freak. Thanks for becoming a member. Zach Beach, you legend. Thank you very much for the $20 and your little alien head. I appreciate that. Rain, my brother, says, hang on, was that supposed to be a photo from 1803 at the start of this? Really? Don't think possible. No, I believe the photo is meant to be from 1904. But the building says 1803 on it, which would imply that that's when it was built. Which, again, just makes, I mean, for me, like 1904 is already quite hard to grasp, right? That we're doing this. I mean... 1904, I think we may have not even had the first, what is it, like the Ford Model T, like the first car. Or if we did have it, it was like very new. You know, I don't know if they would have been hooking a trailer on it and carting construction supplies to a work site. You know what I mean? So you've got to think about that as well. Like the logistics of getting all the materials to the location is a whole thing as well. Josh Bartlett says, bro, wait until this guy finds out how old the Great Pyramid in Egypt is and where this style of architecture comes from. My man, I reckon he's probably done videos on it, to be honest, bro. This guy's got a lot of cool videos, and I've been wanting to check him out on the channel for a while, but we just haven't got around to it. But I think, yeah, today's been the perfect day because we've been busy, and it's just a nice cruisy watch along together.
Switch gears here for part 2. I want to show you all the Grimes County Courthouse, located in Anderson, Texas. And we'll just go right in on their website and can really understand how deep the lie goes and how many times it's happened and how these stories are a code and, in my opinion, written by the AI. And a clear giveaway is the repetition. The courthouse was supposedly designed by Glover and Company and completed in 1894, where it incorporates the east wall and foundations of an earlier courthouse that was, you guessed it, destroyed by a fire. So, we are all aware of what the fire narrative really means at this point. It is a nod to their group that this building is from the old world. There was never a fire here, and this building is the original building. The fires that happen today are real. You can see them. The fires are there to destroy the previous civilization's work. And they are not just fires. In my opinion, they are demolitions. Stone and brick do not burn down from a house fire. And this is common knowledge. The fire story today is to destroy these buildings, collect the insurance check, and there's nobody to blame, conveniently. Now, a fire story from the 1800s is weird, because they're trying to fit these incredible buildings into this insane timeline that they're trying to come up with. It's simply a nod, and we know this now. The amount of times that the fire narrative is given to us is alarming. Can you imagine every single house in your neighborhood going up in a fire? No, that's not possible.
It is in California.
But nearly...
Sorry. Maybe that was a bit too soon, but I mean, it's true.
Every single old world building has a fire story. The probability of that is 0%. So let's stay in Anderson County, Texas, where they have another courthouse that has a backstory that, in my opinion, wouldn't hold up in their own courthouse. Located at one public square in Palestine, Anderson County, Texas. This building was built on top of the highest hill in Palestine. And we all know when there is a big hill, that something is most likely under the grass. We've shown this a lot. Episode 45 has...
What the Epstein? My guys put flashing subliminal messages in his videos. Direct energy weapon? Yeah, I think so. Have no proof, okay? Can't prove it, but yeah, I think the California fires were a direct energy weapon. Don't believe me, though. It's just my opinion, and I can't prove it, but yeah, I do think that.
as an awesome example of this. Of course, we get the weirdest reoccurring names here, which we have shown a lot. How the AI can't come up with different names. It basically takes like 3 names and scrambles them. It's actually bizarre. It's very weird. Episode 43 is my favorite example of this with the Fredericks. But here we get the architects, Charles Henry Page and Louis Charles Page. So we get Charles Page and Louis Charles Page. That's fine, they can be brothers. But we know the reoccurring names at this point, and know that this is not an accident. And we know what's really going on here. The mom and dad didn't put Charles as the one kid's name, and Charles for the other kid's middle name. It's a clear mix-up by the AI. And then calling them brothers. And to drive this home, if you're on the fence, this is the 4th courthouse on this site. And this one was thrown together by the Charles Page twins in less than a year. Over 110 years ago. From 1913 to 1914. Still trusting the narrative? Or should we go deeper? The first Anderson County Courthouse, a 1-story frame structure, was built in 1847. It was replaced, supposedly, 9 years later. And this type of thing was simple in the 1800s. Building courthouses back then with a horse and a wagon with no power tools was simple stuff. It was very easy. So a 3rd courthouse, also brick, was completed in 1886, only 30 years later. But you guessed it, was, of course, destroyed by a fire in 1913. We're clearly at the point where we are proving time and time again that we have been told a massive lie, and that none of the mainstream history is or ever has been telling the truth. Again, using facts and real logistics and common sense. This fire supposedly happens in 1913. This is what they're telling us. And then somehow clean this brick building up, get it out of the way, get all of the new materials to the site, and knock this new courthouse out in less than a year. And it's here forever. This is insane to believe at this point. That isn't even close to a real timeline. And we're not done with Texas today. Let's go over to the...
I mean, I think he's let's kind of like what I was getting at before, really. Like, these buildings are, you know, like still today, we look at some of these buildings and we're like, wow, that's amazing. Like, we don't really build like that anymore. It's quite impressive. And for it to be put up in such a short amount of time without, you know, with like a horse and cart to be bringing resources to the construction site. Like, I do think like that is kind of an interesting point that he's making. We don't really have anything to compare that to. You know, no one's using a horse and cart these days, so it's not like we really know how long that takes, but like, I think it's a fair point, to be honest. 8U says, could it be a case of costs of production, wages, availability of materials, government regulations, etc.? We have access to cheaper, more efficient to building materials now. Possibly. And you know, if that is the case, like I definitely would understand that to a degree. Like, you've got to keep up with a growing economy, so you know you probably can't build every building as beautiful and grand as something like this is. But I do wish, like, even if that is the case, and this is all just fake and gay, I do wish that we still did do stuff like this a little bit, you know, like sometimes, just to kind of keep a little bit of like character and culture and soul and beauty in like the modern cities. It all just kind of looks like, you know, relics of the past where people kind of cared and had pride in what they did. And now everything is just kind of like bland and soulless.
The Fort Bend County Courthouse and see what they have going on over there. Since, of course, we have these very real twin Charles Page brothers, pinned as the architects of that one too. A brick, classical revival style masterpiece that also stands the test of time. And if you thought that last one was an eye-opener, hold on to your seats, because this is the 5th courthouse in this county, which began in 1837. The structure was designed by these Page twins and all wrapped up in 1909. So from 1908 to 1909, less than a year, they got this thing done. And that's, of course, not the weirdest part, because, of course, there is more. Because we need to figure out why there's been 5 courthouses here in this town. So the 1887 courthouse, one of the 5 that were here prior, had a clock tower, but they removed that shortly after the building was done, which makes sense. if you're trying to hide the past civilization's work. This courthouse stood on Morton Street, where the current town hall sits, and you guessed it again, it burned down in 1930. Did you think that was where I was going to stop? Well, here on TexasCourthouses.com,
Shit's
I
burning
found
down
all
left, right, and
5
center.
of these supposed previous courthouses, and I want to know where they all went. Not just one of them. The first one, in 1842, gone, lost to erosion. Here's the second one. Building completion date, 1871. Present status, gone, burned down in 1887. So we know that this exact same courthouse has multiple fire stories, because we already know that courthouse number 3, built in 1887, also burned down in 1930 from a fire. Oh.
There's a whole lot of fires going on. Like, no matter what you think about this, you got to say that there is like quite a lot of fires and things burning down. A little bit strange.
And remember when we were told that the clock tower was removed shortly after the building was done? Well, now we're being told that it was conveniently blown away in the wind. Come on, narrator, get your story straight. Oh, and just for fun, courthouse number 2 was set.
The age of candlelight, that is very true. That is, yeah, pre-electricity. People are lighting their houses and, you know, you see in your way at nighttime with probably, yeah, some kind of oil lamp, oil fire. Very true.
$7,500. So courthouse number 4, just throw another 0 on the end of the same exact repeating number of 75. Unbelievable stuff. Between building projects that take less than a year, over and over, to the same names, and all of the old world buildings, somehow, randomly, without any backstory as to how it happened, going up in flames. Brick buildings, when we know that brick does not burn down from house fires. This is a lie and has been right in our faces. And all we had to do was look. I have located these Charles Page twins, and I have found their supposed backstory. And not only are they from St. Louis, a place that we have gone to, and we know how incredible that place is now, but their father has the same name of Charles Henry, and the mother's name is Page. All 4 characters sharing the same name, where his father was a Mason, with his brother being named Louis, and another duplicate name, hinting at the city of St. Louis. It's a code.
He does a lot of weird, like, editing. Like, I don't know what he's trying to do with that, like trying to drop subliminal messages in here. What do you guys think about the name stuff, though? Like, it does kind of give off... Like, do you think he's reaching here? Or do you think this kind of, like, you know, corroborates the idea that the world is really controlled by, you know, a small handful of families?
Clear connection. Reoccurring names over and over again. A code for only their group to understand. Until now. Today, I'm going to introduce an alternative conclusion as to why these palaces are all over the world today. I'm going to attempt to take our thought process a little deeper. And we're also going to see a palace in Russia that we are told has a painter that died years before the construction was even close to being done. Because we all paint our house before it's built. No. Right here on stpetersburg.com. We are given a panoramic shot of St. Petersburg, Russia, with perfect dirt roads, where I don't see a single person. Massive buildings everywhere, yet not one person. These photos are from 1861, only 3 years after they say that this was constructed. You can see this palace in the 4th shot in the panoramic view, where it's becoming clearer and clearer that these cities all over the world, palaces, were constructed by a massive civilization, one that was here before us, a civilization that had incredible technology, and a civilization that was here only a few hundred years ago, a civilization that is clearly being hidden to us. Yet their construction sits here looking at us straight in the face. These photos are alarming in my opinion. Everyone should be asking questions at this point. One question should be, who paved all of this dirt? Like it's all perfectly prepared for these photos. And I'm going to suggest an alternative, much less likely idea, an idea that should just be out there for people to think about. And possibly not just an alternative idea, but something that could definitely be an addition to what we have already known. that there was a previous civilization here before us. But after doing countless hours of this research on this topic, after looking at these photos, where these cities look like they were on display for all of us, almost like they were prepared for us, cleaned up perfectly, and ready for us all to come into the picture in the late 1700s. An idea that I'm just going to throw out there into the world for everyone to think about, instead of being just stuck in my head, is, are there two groups, one that actually cared about us, possibly created us, and set this stage for us, and one that does not care about us, with the corrupt group still being here, and the other group that built our incredible stage and felt that we deserved the greatest palaces to live in and use. The group that fully understood this type of incredible construction, possibly no longer here, with a corrupt group that ended up wanting to control an entire population, us. Changing the narrative to all of these buildings, hijacking all of the buildings, calling them Capitol buildings, banks, buildings for them now, and no longer for us.
You know, like, I don't know if like everything, if I'm on board with like everything that he's saying, but you know, some of the stuff that he's saying here about an ancient civilization looking to, you know, potentially expand, reach out, control the population. And I can get on board with that. I can definitely get on board with that.
Buildings that were always and originally meant for us, where they are now used as this group's offices to control us, destroying the rest of the buildings with wars, great fires that weren't so great, tricking us for 200 plus years, giving us a ridiculous story that a group of people that had a population of basically nobody, that rode around on donkeys with no technology, were the master builders of stone-carved and marble basilicas that stand the test of time all over the world, when in reality it was a much more powerful group that is no longer here, or maybe they are, and watching from a distance. A group that set the stage for all of us, built all of these incredible buildings that we have been talking about this entire time. Temples, cathedrals, basilicas, capitol buildings, houses that are white, and no, not the vinyl siding ones. Is it possible that we are so much more important, so much more powerful than we are told, and completely tricked and manipulated into thinking that we are just these lazy pawns to these corrupt individuals that stole our buildings, our land, our lives, making us feel like we're born just to work and sleep, just to struggle over and over, when in reality, our lives are so much more important and incredibly valuable. In reality, they have stolen our buildings, taken them from us, and giving us these depressing, ugly boxes in return, which are demoralizing to look at. We know.
That is true. That is true. They took our buildings and their jobs.
That the historical narrative that we are currently given is complete nonsense. We have proven this, in my opinion. We have shown massive flaws, including the population lie, where supposedly we are being told that nobody wants to have kids with anyone for thousands of years. And then in the 1700s, out of nowhere, conveniently, right when all the financial institutions begin, the human mind changes for the first time ever. Just a random fluke, we are told. And people finally enjoy each other's company and finally want to have kids with each other. And this narrative was accepted for far too long. Believing this narrative, this chart, is borderline insanity. What we don't know, and what we all want to know, is where we are. What is the truth? Who actually built these buildings? They are incredible, and nothing like the buildings that we build today. It's built by a different mindset. They're built with much more technology, much more information that we do not have. We are not taught these skills in our highest architecture classes. Which class shows us how to knock out a palace in a year with no power tools, no light bulbs, no shipping companies, nothing? That chapter was left out of the college architecture book. We all know this. These buildings that we all see in every single one of our cities, they tell a much different story.
I think this guy, how long we got left? Okay, we're a bit over halfway through. I think my opinion of this guy so far is like, I think there's definitely something in what he's saying. Like, I don't necessarily know if I believe all of it, but I do like his theory. But I feel like some of the examples that he pulls and the way he kind of tries to deliver his points does him a disservice. But yes, I agree. Ruferia, let him cook. We're going to let him cook, absolutely. You never judge a meal until he's finished cooking.
Than what we've all been told by the mainstream narrative. And this narrative, this lie, it only helps one group, and the group is not us. There was a previous civilization that was here before us, a civilization that was massive and held incredible technology. But there is a very real possibility in my mind that there are also higher powers that are possibly still here that set this current stage for us. And the game has now been corrupted. We don't advance our overall thought process by simply being quiet. Who maintained all of this dirt? We're being told that a civilization of no people had the capabilities to construct an entire palace city. And this city will last forever. Yet when you look at the finished product, there isn't a single person anywhere. It's empty. And here we have St. Isaac's Cathedral, located in St. Petersburg, Russia. And the inside just blows your mind. With massive doors.
Dude, look at that freaking building. Come on. Look at that. That's insane. And this thing was apparently built in like 1890 something. Like, or, you know, early 1900s. Like, bro. Like, I don't have an answer and I don't know what I believe, but I do find it hard to believe that was done like that. But who knows? Who knows? We are amazing beings.
Incredible detail with a height of over 330 feet. And we are told the exact same story that we've seen all over the world. That this wasn't even the first structure. This one was the replacement. In fact, it was the fourth consecutive church standing at this place. The exact same location has had 4 churches here. This is what we're being told. I'm shocked that this pattern, that 4 buildings have been on the same site. How has this pattern not been identified before? We see the exact same thing, even over in Texas, when they have 7 courthouses on the exact same site. We've seen it all over. It's a repeating pattern. All of these narratives all over the world are, in my opinion, created by the same source. And
so he's sort of saying that this is like a narrative delivered by like an AI god. I don't know if he explained it earlier and I missed it, but obviously he's given us a few examples now of buildings that we are told have been built, burnt down, rebuilt in the same spot like multiple times throughout history. And a lot of these buildings are sort of built with stone, which, you know, technically shouldn't burn down. But I don't know if I missed it, but has he given a reason or an answer as to what the benefit is, or like why are we being told that these things keep building down? Like, if it's a lie, has he given us a point as to why they're saying that? Like, obviously, yeah, okay, it's to cover it up, but like, what is it about building and rebuilding in the same spot over and over? He's getting to it. Okay, he hasn't mentioned that yet. Okay, good. Let him cook. Let him cook.
In my opinion, based on everything that we've seen, it's an AI, very similar to ChatGPT. This palace has bronze doors, internal columns, statues on the inside, and of course, the interior was originally decorated with paintings that have been since painted over. And supposedly they reproduced them. They had to get rid of the originals because they deteriorated because of the cold and damp conditions inside. This is incredible how they get away with destroying the originals over and over. We are told that this building was constructed between 1818 and 1858, when we can easily catch this narrative in a lie. When we go to Vatican City and take a look at Sistine Chapel, where Michelangelo painted this in 1508 to 1512, supposedly, predating this Russian painting by over 300 years. And it's holding up just fine, unless, of course, Michelangelo had a better paint set. It's ridiculous. So the paintings should have been just fine in Russia. And this is when the story gets even weirder, when they tell us that during World War II, the dome was also painted over, making it gray. to avoid attention from enemy aircraft. So I hope we're all seeing very clearly at this point what these wars, seeing what their true purpose was. Clearly destroying these buildings, removing the inside because it was too cold. Give me a break. And they say the work was never completed. But when you take a look at the inside, it looks pretty completed to me. It doesn't even look like they missed one spot.
Does
and they
look
tell
very
us
good.
that the original paintings were done by this Carl guy and other random Russian masters of the day. And of course, no need to name these Russian masters of the day, but here is Carl. It was the pose of the day. Could you imagine if we gave information the way the mainstream narrative did? Just saying they were the flavor of the day, painted by the painters of the day, like it's some sort of special on the menu. It's incredible how this was accepted as fact for so long. It's shocking. And Carl died before the construction was done. Do we all paint our houses before the construction is done? Or is this the last step in the...
Carl died before the construction was done, but he painted it. I mean, he painted the interior, to be fair. To be fair, he did paint the interior. Maybe the exterior wasn't done. How are you enjoying this, Josh? Orf, look, I know it's crazy, bro. I know it's really crazy. But in the world, there are lots of different people. And we all enjoy different things. I know it's weird. I know it's crazy and hard to wrap your head around. But sometimes people who are different to you think a bit differently. And they enjoy looking into things that may or may not be true and considering all the possibilities. I know it's wild. I know, isn't it? It's crazy. But for me, I like looking into this stuff and not accepting the mainstream narrative and considering the points given and making up my own mind. I know it's hard to digest for you. It's a big concept, but it's true. It really is true. Europe has 500-year-old castles and Gothic cathedrals. Yes, yeah, amazing architecture there as well. And Bleak says, finally caught alive, it's been a minute. My man, Bleak, nice to see you here, brother. And that was Hard Nips. Love it. AU says, I feel like this guy is reaching so he can make a video. I do love a conspiracy, but this one for me is a bit far. I'm a tradesman in Australia. He does a lot of good videos, to be fair. I've watched a couple of them. I wouldn't say this is his best one. But I like I said, I think he does some cool research and he makes interesting cases. I think his delivery could use some work. That's what I think. And again, I don't fully know if I agree with everything that he says either, but it's still interesting. Pentinent Lizard, do you think there's any correlation between the fires that destroyed these buildings and the fire that destroyed the Library of Alexandria? Possibly. That's a hard one to say, but possibly. It's I think it's interesting that the place like the Library of Alexandria burnt down, Notre Dame, like these very significant places with potential, history attached to it, or even documented history and secrets attached to it, burnt down as well. I do find that interesting. So perhaps. Kelly Hall says, what the hell is going on? Safe travels, Josh and Suki. Happy Thanksgiving in America. I'm off to work. Thank you very much, Kelly. Hope you have a great day at work. And AU says, there is a reason so many people hired masons to build these kind of buildings. They have mathematical knowledge and skill. It's not aliens at this time. Yeah, that is true. I mean, the Freemasons was like I guess like a club or a fraternity of stonemasons originally. And it was created to protect their trade secrets and their craftsmanship and their skill. So, yep, no, you are right. And Keith Wycliffe says, sorry for being a dick, just my own insecurities and doubts. Also jealousy because I can't grow a clean beard. You do belong in this field, though. Keith, if you didn't say anything, mate, I wouldn't have even known that you said something. But now I did, and now I'm pissed off at you. No, I'm just kidding, bro. Thank you. It's all good. No stress, brother. Relax.
The process. It is the last step. You don't paint your house years before it's done. He died in 1852. We are told that the building is done in 1858. So this guy that put the finishing touches on the palace is dead 6 years before the building is done. So we know we don't paint our house 6 years before it's done. Oh, and if we go down here at the bottom, we can see that this was his self-portrait. Very nice choice, Carl. Let's take a look at the technologies of this palace, where William Handyside is the engineer. So Handyside is the guy, where they get 10,000 tree trunks and throw them into the marshy banks. So they want us to believe that there's just a bunch of tree trunks under this palace. And I know they are a bunch of liars at this point, so when we see something like this, I know to go deeper. This statement makes me think that there is something under this palace that has significant value. When we can see that this building has artwork and exhibits from a museum that were hidden away in the cathedral's basement. So now we know that this palace has a basement with valuables in it, and all chalked up to this war again. So they lay down these 10,000 tree trunks on a marshy bank, and then knock out a massive basement on top of all that, and then build a palace, and paint it before it's done, and then get rid of those paintings because it's a little too cold, but never finish those paintings, of course. Oh, and this is the fourth palace on the same site. It sounds like a lie. I wonder how much bigger this palace is underground, like we have seen in episode 44, when we caught a tunnel on camera from the Illinois State Capitol building while they were in the middle of destroying something and just call it a renovation project. So here's the construction photo that they give us. A photo from expresstoroussia.com. There's a big problem though with this picture. It's a drawing. And we know that they had cameras in 1816. So why give us a drawing? I've said this before, but it's so true. For all we know, they just drew this last night. It's a drawing. It's obviously not proof of construction. Not even close. Here,
It's true. It is true. It's not. But like also maybe they just didn't have a camera at that, like on them at that time. You know, I think this guy, again, I think he does some cool research, but I think he sort of like assumes the outcome that fits his narrative. And again, I don't totally think his whole narrative is incorrect, but I do think he jumps to a few conclusions, or like he makes a few assumptions.
here we are told we have a view of the cathedral surrounded by wood scaffolding from another drawing, drawn 3 years ago by a master drawer of the day, as the mainstream narrative likes to say. It's incredible. So in 1931, they turned this cathedral into a museum when, under the Soviet government, the building was stripped of religious trappings. In 1931, it was turned into the Museum of the History of Religion and Atheism. So the complete opposite of a cathedral. Going back to my suggestion that there's possibly a group that wants to take these buildings that were originally meant for us in a positive manner and turn them into the complete opposite, removing everything that was once given to all of us, a cathedral, changed to a museum of history and atheism, where the original dove structure was removed and replaced by a Foucault pendulum, which we all know at this point is some weird symbol for this group. Let's check this palace out, now that we know that this building's narrative is forever in shreds. So here we have the St. Isaac's Cathedral, and right over here we have another building that'll no longer be hidden in plain sight, the Mariinsky Palace. Now let's have some fun, and make sure you don't confuse it with the theater. And thank you for letting us know about this masterpiece. Is there a more entertaining topic? Finding buildings, palaces, that make no sense in the fabricated timeline that we're given. Palaces that we can actually go and visit, especially when we're told that this was built in a year. And unfortunately, the original building was destroyed by a fire in 1859. Adding to our fire total. Is your mind blown yet? Should we go deeper? The new one, the one that's here today, the palace opened up the very next year. So the theater's narrative is clearly a mess. So let's go back to this palace, where in 1839, they were building palaces as wedding presents. This is incredible. Built in 5 years, from 1839, and wrapped it right up in 1844. And then, of course, taken over by the Russian government and off limits to the public. Were these buildings built for them? It's definitely an interesting thought. that these narratives are thrown together by this group as a successful attempt to steal these buildings from us and clearly getting away with it, and then create the passport so that if we want to go visit these lands that were once all ours, you need to make sure you have your papers. I don't think this was the world that was created for all of us. I think it was the complete opposite, and it's been 100% infiltrated worldwide.
I think this guy's like the kind of guy where if you're at a party, basically like any conversation that's happening, he won't be able to help himself but be like, oh yeah, they own the world. Yep. Yeah, they did that to us too. Like you could be talking about anything. You could be talking about just like going to see a nana on the weekend. And he'll be like, yeah, I bet they jacked up the prices because they control the world. Those Rothschilds. It's like, bro, can we just have a normal conversation, please, for 5 minutes? This guy, I feel like everything to him is like the Rothschilds, the global elite. And, you know, like he might be right, you know, and probably is right, but it's just like, you know, can we just relax for 5 minutes, please?
And it's beginning to feel more and more like everyone's starting to realize that. And I was
hang out
looking
with
at
that
this
guy.
area and saw these two buildings in the background that clearly look out of place.
He'd make a great podcast guest.
So let's check this one out first. A building that was taken over by the Russian Navy, where they tell us that an earlier wooden church sat on the exact same site. And then we have the other palace that we just saw. And remember, all of these buildings, they're all right next to each other. This is the Trinity Cathedral, where let's just close this episode off properly. Let's show the world that the lie is over. It's game over for the mainstream narrative. And there is no going back. We will all never forget this. The more and more people that see the lies, the faster the truth is going to be shown to us, where we are told that the Trinity Cathedral was constructed in 1828 to 1835. And in 2006, the blaze apparently started on scaffolding on the outside of the church, which was undergoing restoration. And we all know that restoration really means destruction. Now in Columbus, Ohio, we are given one of the most important narratives to this point, to our research, in my opinion. We have the Pontifical College, Josephinum, where Joseph comes over to the USA from Germany in 1867. 3 years later, he becomes a priest and has his own church within a few months. And he gets to buy the house next door, of course, to support 12 orphans. And do we all know about the orphans at this point? Possibly a repopulation tactic that was going on in the 1800s. It's very interesting. Was it only 12 orphans? Or was this one of the places that they would send the orphans through to get them into society? Because who would ever question Joseph the priest from the 1800s? You know, the guy that just randomly shows up from Germany, has all the money ready to buy houses somehow, to support orphans. It all checks out, of course. Simple stuff for Joseph. This was known as the St. Joseph Orphan Asylum. It grew so rapidly, for some weird and of course very random reason, that 5 years after it began, Joseph moved the operation closer to the railroad, which is how these individuals would be dispersed throughout the country. So this is a paragraph of admission. We are being told, down to the smallest detail, how this operation worked. It would go through churches. They would bring a manager type over from Europe, call them a priest, give them a house, give them the resources to run these operations, purchasing new buildings with ease to run the program. So not only do you have the world's fairs that were a repopulation tactic, you had these orphan trains and orphan hubs where they would be dropped off and planted into society. The new facility that Joseph was just finding and saying was his. I want to make that clear, he wasn't building anything. He was given these buildings that were already there from the previous civilization. So the new building gave the orphans a training in the trades. So this Joseph guy was obviously sent with a purpose, to repopulate and teach to a brand new society, one that didn't have any skills. This right here is how you reset a society's technology level. The teacher is never in charge of what the students learn. This Joseph character is a teacher of a class. He is not the principal of the school. There are many schools. He is clearly taking direction as to what the students of the new society will learn. There were many classes like this one, all over the country, happening simultaneously. This was an operation. This went on for 12 years, with zero backstory. Finds the Collegium Josephinum, this massive college, is just found and ready to roll. No clue where the money came from. No mention of how many men were needed to build this place. Just found it. And its first class of 23 men began. It's unbelievable. This is one of the most important stories to our research, in my opinion, because it shows exactly how the operation took place. It's actually laying it all out there and shows us exactly how they repopulated these regions in the USA. It shows us the operation with the orphans, the teaching programs. And this was our base for our technological knowledge. Whoever controlled this operation from the top has all of the technology from the previous civilization and is controlling what technology we get to have. And they've clearly been doing this for a very long time. And for anyone that's on the fence, we have the St. Vincent's Infant Asylum located.
Someone has, right? I mean, you know, I feel like you know, I mean, we did the poll at the start of this. The chat is kind of pretty split, and we'll run another poll soon on how people are feeling as we get towards the end on it. But you might not agree with everything that he's saying, and like I said, I do feel like some of his points are maybe reaching, but I think he's making a pretty interesting case here. Like, I think he's potentially onto something, and especially like what he's saying there, that, you know, there are obviously signs of an ancient civilization on Earth with advanced technology. Okay, we know that with like the pyramids and various other ruins that are scattered around the world. You know, to sort of extrapolate that further and go deeper into some of these buildings and talk about a controlling structure that is, you know, stonewalling the advancement of technology in humanity. Like, you know, that stuff does check out, but whether they all fit, whether it all fits together is another thing. Like, whether his theory fits together with that theory is a whole other thing. But, you know, I definitely think there's at least a couple of morsels of goodness in this one. Kerry, were these buildings real or is this AI? Anybody know anything about these buildings in particular? I'm pretty sure they are real, Kerry. There's been stuff about this floating around the internet about these world fairs for a long time prior to AI. Ra Clark says, just my opinion, but Tartaria is an insult to human history and the real Tartar people of Eurasia. Interesting. Okay, there we go. Maggie, thank you very much for the sticker. Daria says, are we looking at anything else this stream? No, we're not. We're going to be wrapping this up. We're going to be going over to the members only section. We're going to be chilling out over there and playing a bit of GeoGuessr. Maybe we'll be geoguessing some Tartarian buildings, in fact. Acoustic Girl, you little freak, thanks for becoming a member. And Achy Balls says, I don't believe anyone has really addressed the series of global catastrophic events between 1887 and 1893. Deaths, famine, and displacement numbers are staggering, yet it is hardly mentioned in the historical record. Interesting. Do you think, are you sort of suggesting that these catastrophes have something to do with the destruction and rebuilding of all of these buildings? Or what? How are you thinking that fits into the puzzle here?
Located in Baltimore, where we have tunnels under the ground. This infant asylum was in use in the mid-1800s, during the same time period as German transfer Joseph. And what do you know? In the early 1900s, the operation was done, and they declined new orphans. 1941, they changed this to apartments. And in 2015, they light it up and try to destroy it with a fire, but they fail. So 3 years later, what do you think happens? 2018, the building was illegally demolished without a permit. You literally can't make this stuff up. It gets more and more obvious if you're still on the fence. Let's go even deeper. We have the St. Mary's Orphan Asylum, located in Galveston, Texas, where they tell us that this one is haunted. Now, I've talked about hauntings before briefly. I'm not going to say that there aren't any hauntings, but when it comes to these old world buildings, I think it was a tactic to keep people away from them. Just say that they're haunted, and it scares everyone away from investigating. So we have yet again another orphan operation going on in the mid-1800s. And I'm just going to let you know that this is going on and on and on. There were so many orphan operations going on in the mid-1800s because this was how they were repopulating these cities. So where were all these kids' parents Is this where a lot of our families originated from? Is this why the family trees in the USA almost all end around the same time period? We are told hundreds of fire stories through the first 52 episodes. We know that that is the key, and the nod, that it's a building that was constructed by the previous civilization. The St. Mary's Orphan Asylum. For anyone wondering where the parents of these orphans were, you might want to check the other asylum, the insane asylum, because they were not going along with the reset. Here's a graph showing that the insane asylums are disappearing over time, and I wonder why. Good thing they cared so much about us in 1955 and 1965, because surely that was the fix. Then a fire had devastated the St. Mary's Orphan Asylum in 1875. If anyone is still on the fence, there is room over here to get off the fence. And honestly, who would want to sit on top of a fence anyway? So
Yeah,
we have Ohio,
especially one like that.
Baltimore, Texas. We have all these towns,
Some
cities
might.
being repopulated. Brand new people, brand new social structures, brand new mindsets, and resetting what people are taught. This all happened around 150 years ago. So this is all very new. This isn't thousands of years ago. Then we have another very interesting aspect of this in Germany during this same exact time period. And remember, we also have good old Joseph from earlier, also from Germany. So here we are given the Kinder.
This guy's not good at explaining his theory. I do agree with that. He does take a while to get to his point. At least for me. I'm sitting here going like, yep. Come on. Next. Why make an asylum a massive and grand scale in decor? I agree, Amy. Yeah, that is a great point. If there was going to be any building that you build that is bland and soulless, like we said earlier, probably that one. That one probably doesn't need like the Art Deco finishes and like, you know, the beautiful paintings on the ceiling, unfortunately. I don't think they're going to get as appreciated there. Achy Balls says, hard to tell because history is so convoluted, but it's just another example of a cherry-picked past. Yeah, 100%, bro. I totally agree with that.
Beware install. And if I pronounce that wrong, I hope you all understand. This is where we are given kindergarten, another tactic to teach children the brand new social structures. What better way to trick people? Take them out of their family's home and tell them what to think, and then test them on it. Failing the test will then lower your self-esteem, putting a social pressure on children to agree with this new way of thought, or they will be called dumb and get an F. This is an operation.
Familiar?
It's all connected. And it's designed to enslave the world's population. Year after year, we are all taught a false narrative. We've all been brainwashed into thinking that you are either smart or dumb based on a curriculum that holds zero value in the real world.
He's cooking now.
Who knows?
He's cooking right now. Carl Nell literally said the biggest problem we have with disclosure and people learning the truth is unlearning. People need to unlearn first before they can learn, because the truth doesn't fit with what you've been taught in these schools, any of us. And that's why I like to listen to this stuff, even if, you know, I think half of it is kind of he's a bit lost or he's not making a good point or whatever, because the point is we need to unlearn and come to terms with the fact that like a good portion of like history and the things that we have been taught are, I'm not going to say just outright false, but it's been like a very twisted version of the truth. It's a version of the truth that benefits someone and it fits into a certain narrative to uphold this system. Because if we knew the truth, we probably wouldn't allow the system to exist, because we would realize it's complete bullshit. So I think that's why it's good to have an open mind with these kind of things. And maybe some of it is bullshit, but at the end of the day, so is what you've been taught. So is what you believe. So is what you think is true. That's also bullshit. So, you know, you may as well keep an open mind to this too.
If this Frederick Froebel was even a real character, but they do admit that kindergarten starts in Germany around the exact same time period that we're talking about, the mid-1800s. So I wanted to tie it all in with the rest of the world. This is a worldwide operation. This is not just the USA. We have a lot of things in the USA being controlled through Germany during this time period, especially the education aspect of it. And I want to point out that yes, we have borders and division now. We have so many countries in the world. and everyone is separated. And you're unable to travel to other lands unless you have a piece of paper that is registered and checked at the checkpoints. But who's to say that there even was a border in the previous civilization? Were there so-called elected leaders controlling everyone, deciding what we can and cannot do? Could they have had a truly free life where they were able to travel wherever they want freely and not feel like they're invading someone else's territory? I would say, in my opinion, this was the world that was here before the reset. And something happened where this past civilization was wiped out and their technology was stolen by a group. And some of it is now being sold back to us strategically. The good stuff is kept to control the masses and used for their benefit. Here we have the St. Joseph's Orphanage, located in Vermont. And if you want to know where they get these horror movies, where they show a nun doing crazy things, there's a dark truth to it. These movies don't come out of nowhere. They come from the last 150 years. Here in Vermont, in the mid-1800s again, thousands of children came through its doors. If you want to demoralize, control, and manipulate a new population, make them completely forget their past and never question what they're told, you would make them suffer. You would take them from their families, and you would...
I've always found it so crazy how we're apparently an entire civilization that doesn't really understand its past. Like, we don't really know who built the pyramids. We don't really know, like, exactly, like, how we got here and how it all started and where we came from. Although, and what's also interesting is that you can go to, like, native cultures who, you know, Western civilization has been told to believe are just kind of like illiterate, uneducated, silly, believe in woo-woo stories. They have an answer. They'll tell you. Might sound kind of crazy to the brainwashing system that's been installed in our minds, but they have an answer. We don't. That's weird. That's kind of weird. It's like a parallel reality, like Matthew Brown said. Exactly, Yoshi. I think a lot of things Matthew Brown said are like little gold nuggets that apply to a lot of things. It really is like there's so much to the world that we don't really realize or understand or that's going on that we're basically just in like a little controlled bubble. The passport rabbit hole is crazy. I don't know about that one. I'll have to look into that one. What's the point of a history reset? I guess to keep people controlled, right? Like you said, if you keep people sort of not really understanding their origin story or where they came from, you've got a confused people. And confused people are far easier to control, 100%. School as we know it today didn't start until around 1800s, after the colonial period. Before that, if people learned to read, they learned at Sunday school a couple hours a week. Interesting, Marinda. Dropping a few facts for us tonight. I like it. And you know, what is also interesting is like the school system hasn't really changed since then. You know, like we all kind of go sit in front of a teacher and, you know, they just explain to us what we're meant to know. And you know, we go home and do a project on something that is probably fake anyway. It's weird that hasn't changed with time and we haven't really designed a better way for us to kind of be up to date with things. But I guess if you are teaching a lie, you probably wouldn't want to change it. You wouldn't want to fix it because there's nothing to fix. You have it set up that way for a reason. Why are the building styles so different from the other ancient American forms of building? 0 sense with this theory. Why are the building styles so different from the other ancient American forms of building? 0 sense with this theory. Well, I think there's probably like a lot of different reasons. I don't think he's given us them in this video, but I don't know if I would say that there's 0 sense to that point specifically. I think like there could be reasons, but like if you're asking what he said, I don't think he's given us one.
Ruin their mind at a young age. We have more than 5 million American children passing through the orphanage system in the 1900s alone, hitting its peak in the early 1900s. So it began in the mid-1800s and really ramped up to populate these cities. The American orphanage system included more than 1,600 institutions, partly supported by public funding, but usually run by religious orders, exactly like we talked about in the beginning of this episode. So I think we have now a very solid understanding how the USA was repopulated, how this operation took place, and exactly when it took place. I think that we now have factual evidence as to when this reset really happened. And I think that every episode that is released makes episode 10 and 38 stronger and stronger, giving us more and more proof to our true history.
That guy's got a catalog. All right. That is him. That is my lunch break. If you want to go check out his channel, more videos on that in the description, or his channel is in the description. If you want to go and check him out, subscribe over there. He does other stuff as well, I believe. He doesn't just do this Tartaria-esque stuff, but he does focus on that quite a bit. But let's actually get another poll up. I'm interested to see if anyone is feeling a little bit different about that. How do you feel about, we'll just say Tartaria now? How do you feel about Tartaria now? Still real, fake, and gay? Or on the fence? We'll go on the fence. All right, that poll is up. Get your answers in. I want to see if there's a shift either way. But yeah, I find it, how do I feel? I probably kind of gave you guys how I'm feeling. But given how much, as you look into this topic, you begin to realize how much we've been lied to, right? You know, it start for me anyway, and probably a lot of us, it starts with the UFO topic. You get pretty deep down that rabbit hole. You begin to realize that you've been lied to about a lot of what's happened in the world, and you only get a very sanitized, washed, and surface level version of the truth. If at all, okay? If at all, if not just a complete lie. So once you start to realize that, and you start to realize how deep the rabbit hole goes, and that there does seem to be some elite bloodlines and families that do have a big hand in controlling things and believe that they have a right to rule in this world, it makes me feel like things like this, there could absolutely be something to it. The dude didn't present any verifiable evidence. Who has, though? Who has produced verifiable evidence, right? I mean, in this kind of field. You know, when we're looking into UFOs and all this kind of stuff, a lot of it is hearsay. You've got multiple people coming out saying they were abused in their private parts by people in Hollywood and elite families, satanic ritual abuse. Where's the verifiable evidence? There isn't any. But there's a shitload of people saying it. So does everyone like just going public and saying, I was abused in a horrific kind of way? Everyone see my face? That happened to me. Do you think people are just doing that for a bit of a gag? A little bit of a trick? I don't think so. I don't think anyone really wants to put their name to that. So, you know, I don't think saying where's the verifiable evidence for everything is the right way to go about it. I think you need to step back and stop analyzing like every single thing on like an individual basis. And because some of them might be wrong, some of them might be right. But when you zoom out and look at it all, you start to realize that there's like a pretty common trend in all of this. And it does seem to link together in some way. So again, whether you feel like that specific video was entirely bullshit or entirely real, I think given all of that, it's important to stay open-minded to it and consider the idea that there's probably elements of truth buried within layers of bullshit. In fact, that's probably the case most of the time. Because nothing's ever clear-cut. Nothing's black or white. Because we know that. Because life is a polarity. It's everything in between. It's a gray. It's all the stuff in between. Louder for the people at the back. Thank you, Maggie. You can't even judge the present now with AI. Yeah, AI is a massive problem. Does make things a little bit harder. Just got to be... I think... I do wonder if we're going to come full circle. Like if somehow we're going to just like... Everyone's just going to ditch technology entirely because it's just like so untrustworthy now that it's like... How can we rely... We rely on technology, but now how can we rely on it when we can't even trust it? You know what I mean? Like there could be this crazy full circle moment where everyone abandons technology. Or maybe like there'll be some mini little breakaway societies that just decide to be like, fuck it, we're going off grid together. In the Polarity compound, That's right. We're going to be doing it. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. So 47% of you say that it is still real, which is a bit less than before, but we do have a third option now. 28% are on the fence, and 25% believe it is fake and also gay. Very interesting. Bit of a split crowd tonight, but that's good. That's good. It would be weird if we all just believed in everything every single time. I think it's good to have a few skeptical minds. It keeps us all in check, 100%. Now, guys, if you missed at the start of the stream, we are going to go members only in just a moment. And we're going to continue the good times over there, probably just hang out and chat for a little while, and then jump into some GeoGuessr, which if you don't know what GeoGuessr is, it's a really fun game where we get dropped somewhere on Google Maps, anywhere. It could be anywhere in the world in Google Maps, and you have to figure out where you are based on what you can see, and you have to look for clues. And you have to drop a pin on the map where you are, and you get points based on how close you are to that pin. And my record is like 9 meters. 9 meters. That's right. That's how good I am. I'm just kidding. I'm not really that good. Most of the time, you guys solve it for me, and it's like watching your senile grandpa try and use an iPhone, and you're just getting frustrated, going, no, up, click up a bit, up, no, left, and I'm here just doing my best trying to hang on. That's generally the experience of how it goes. Toxic Fart, what are you doing here at this time of the day, sir? Nice to see you. Have a nice trip, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, guys, we're going to do that now. We're actually going to go seamlessly straight over to members only. And there should be a little countdown that comes up. Let me have a look here. Yep. You guys should see a little countdown in 1 minute. Thank you, everyone who hung out today. I appreciate you. Get in the Discord. Come and hang out. We've got lots of exciting stuff coming up, and we've got 100K stream happening on Thursday in Australia and Wednesday night in America. That's going to be a big one before we jump on a plane and go move overseas. Very, very exciting stuff coming up. So yeah, thank you to all the non-members who came and hang out tonight. And to the members, I will see you all on the other side in 25 seconds. In fact, is my aunt doing okay? She actually got out of the ICU today. Thank you for asking, Amy. I appreciate that. She's out of the ICU today and still a little bit of a way to go, but better. Awake. She'd been in a coma for nearly 2 weeks. So it's amazing progress. So very happy about that. But thank you to everyone who came and hung out tonight. And see you on Thursday for the big 100K.